Welcome in to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And this is the Air Raid Hour presented by the Cover One Sports Network. Together, we are the Bills guys, celebrating a big dub and being on top of the AFC East once again. And before we get started today, Dave, I was checking my phone this morning. This is what I woke up to.
Terry just texted me to smile.
Yeah, Terry texted me a smile. Terry is texting me a smile. The Buffalo Bills are back in first place in the AFC East. Josh Allen is a legitimate top 4 to 5 quarterback in the National Football League. And with 2 games left against the Atlanta Falcons and against the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills could end up a 2 or a 3 seed in this AFC East race in this AFC race when all is said and done. What are your initial thoughts and feelings here as we welcome people in to this Monday edition of the Air Raid Hour?
Man, it was. If people know that who follow me on Twitter, like I don't tweet a ton. I tend to tweet more emotionally, I guess, during the games, as we all do, because I'm not really I don't try to get into my emotions and feelings too much on Twitter and social media because it usually ends badly when you do that. But I was a little frustrated throughout the game yesterday. I felt like we were not putting the Pats away, and so when we finally did put them away, I could take a breath and really reflect on the fact that we had just beaten them and taken back the AFC East lead. Man, what a satisfying rest of the day it was, right? Being off of work for the holidays, going to Sunday night, not worrying about anything else football-wise, just that the Bills had retaken the lead in the AFC East. And you know what's even better about it now is like during the drought, it was like a foregone conclusion that we had like 2 losses every year against the Pats. And so it's just nice also to know that like this is like turning into the rivalry that it should be, the back and forth that it should be. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out with different rivalries this weekend. The Joe Burrow comments about the Ravens, like I like that stuff. I like that kind of stuff. So I like that the Bills are now like you open the show with the you. That's bringing back the energy to this rivalry, and it's super exciting.
We're going to get to this later on the show, but just the energy in general. And speaking of energy, we got our man Matthew Montgomery in the comment section. He always brings the energy. He says, "What's up, fellas? How you doing, Matthew? I always appreciate you." Got Chris Janke, Jeffrey Green, got a whole bunch of you in the comment section as well. Devin E, Chris S, David R. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Air Raid Hour. Winning out likely means I went through the ESPN playoff simulator. Winning out likely means a 2 or a 3 seed in the AFC East. It's going to be hard to catch the Chiefs, especially with the schedule that they still have left. But you saw this weekend, the Texans beat the Chargers, and they beat them quite handily. We all know that I have nothing but respect for David Culley and the job that he's doing there in Houston. And they put a beat down. That's sarcastic, obviously. If Jessica Tennis is watching, I was being sarcastic. But everyone knows this. Everyone saw the beatdown that the Houston Texans put on the Los Angeles Chargers, and it goes to show you that these next 2 games against the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets are anything but a given. I think the one not done moniker needs to make a comeback here. We got the 1 win against the New England Patriots, but we're not done. The key word for the next 2 weeks is focus. We got to clamp down. We got to make sure we do our business, and we got to ride this wave of what would be, if we can win these next 2 games, a 4-game winning streak heading into the playoffs. Talk about getting hot at the right time. If you can go in and you can handle the Falcons and you can handle the Jets, even if they're not the best of opponents, you start to get that confidence going. You start to get rolling. You start feeling yourselves. And that's the wave you want to ride into the postseason.
You want to ride that wave into the postseason. The Bills did that last year, obviously, and it rode them all the way to the AFC Championship game. They were just so hot after the bye last year. And they can recreate some of that magic as well, like you said, if they do finish off the season like we hope they will. And you heard it even in McDermott's little locker room speech. He made the point, like, hey, we're not done. We're not done yet. We still got work to do. Like there were some comments in there from McDermott about like we need to focus. I think he made something about like that's 2 of 4 or something, like referencing the last 4 games of the year. So they know that these last 4 games were critical for them, starting with that Panthers game. And now they're 2 for 2 in these games. You have to beat Atlanta this week. Atlanta is a very weird team. They're 7-8. Doesn't feel like they should be 7-8. It feels like they should be more like a 3 or 4 win team, but they are what they are. AXN Jax N 222 comes in with the super chat. Thank you very much for that. O-line was the whole game. Where did that come from? Probably jumping ahead in your show notes, but that was my biggest takeaway. And we're going to get to that
Hey,
because
100%. But hey, let's talk about it a little bit.
yeah,
Because one of the things that I mentioned as part of my negatives of the post game, like if I'm sitting here, I'm fishing, I'm looking for something to be mad about. The number one thing I'm mad about is that it took the Buffalo Bills this long to play Ryan Bates. I mean, I understand that he is your backup center and John Feliciano has been out, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, he made a significant difference. And here's the thing about Ryan Bates, and I know it's only been one game, but I've been high on Ryan Bates and what he has done in the few snaps that he's played. I think Ryan Bates could legitimately be a low-end starting guard in the National Football League, a guy that you don't have to pay $6 million a year to like you're going to be paying John Feliciano. You can get out of that John Feliciano contract, and even if you bring in Ryan Bates next year, who's a restricted free agent, back as like a competition to start, he's still a quality backup. What the hell took the Buffalo Bills so long to get Ryan Bates in the starting lineup? I know we're supposed to be all happy and positive, but the fact that they looked at Cody Ford and they looked at Ryan Bates, and I understand that Cody Ford was a second round pick, and I understand that Cody Ford doesn't have center flex, but they look at these two situations and don't understand that the net negative of having Cody Ford out there compared to Ryan Bates wasn't so insurmountable. They couldn't put Ryan Bates in there. I just don't understand it.
Well, I'll throw a devil's advocate at you. What has been kind of like the one word we've used to describe the Bills this year is inconsistent, right? Like they've been very inconsistent. We know they've gone like win, loss, and now they've won the 2 in a row. Great. But could it be that Ryan Bates just had a good day? I mean, like it could be that. Like we don't like it's hard to tell. Like, right, we need a bigger sample size.
Yeah, he comes out next week, shats the bed.
Yeah, but like he has played like not insignificant snaps over the last couple of years. I wouldn't call them material snaps, but he has played some snaps and he's been okay. And we liked him a couple years ago in the pre-draft process. We thought he could be a day 3 guy.
We called him the next Jeremiah Searles, and that's pretty much what he's been.
We liked him. We thought he could be a target for the Bills in the draft. He ended up going, I think, undrafted, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then we traded for him. Who did we trade? We traded another guy, a UDFA that we got for him.
Yeah,
it was one of those defensive.
It was like Eli Harold, wasn't it?
Yes, no, it wasn't. It wasn't a UDFA.
No,
it was Eli Harold. Yes, it was. It was Eli Harold for Ryan Bates. Straight swap.
I don't know how I pulled that name out of my ass, but yeah. But look, I'm just saying, I like Ryan Bates too. I like his versatility, his depth, because that's what you want in your depth. You want versatile depth. But let's see it again. If that's the case, it could have just been one good day for him. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket here, but like
when Feliciano was back. Question here from Jason Taylor is: would you play Bates over Mongo when Mongo comes back? Mongo has center flex. So you can theoretically start Ryan Bates and still have that versatile guard center backup behind Ryan Bates in John Feliciano when John Feliciano comes back. But also being said, John Feliciano was in the hospital getting mononuclear, whatever they call them, antibodies. Like COVID hit him pretty hard. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see John Feliciano until come playoff time. It wouldn't surprise me if he's still going to be out a couple of weeks. Right. And it might take him a little bit of time to get back into the lineup. I was having this conversation with Chris Jenke yesterday. Today we put Ike Bucker, who tore his Achilles, just an absolute brutal injury for a guy like Ike Bucker, put him on IR. We signed Bobby Hart to the active roster. Our guy Merck on Twitter said, listen, this time of year, anyone who's played snaps in the NFL, it's no longer Bobby Fart. It's all right, Bobby Hart. Yay. We're glad you played in the league before and you're healthy and you don't have COVID. So kudos to you, Bobby Hart, for having played in this league and not having COVID, because that qualifies you to be on an NFL roster right now, the current state of things as is. But looking through the practice squad wire, and this guy was actually cut today from the Giants practice squad, Evan Boehm, who we talked about, who was on the roster bubble all of last year. Yeah. And he actually might be playing in this game because the Saints are dealing with a ton of COVID. I didn't double check to see if he's actually playing tonight, but Forrest Lamp is on the Saints practice squad. And he, like I said, he might be playing today because of all the injuries that they're dealing with. So those are two guys that you can bring in. I know Cody Ford's probably going to come back, but like, I'd rather have that versatility of a guy like Evan Boehm who could play guard center, or a guy like Forrest Lamp who could play guard tackle, as opposed to a guy like Cody Ford. I think Cody Ford's just shot. I know the Buffalo Bills probably don't agree with it, but to me, I'm scouring the waiver wire this week looking for some backups with some guard center flex, and yes, Forrest Lamp is active for the Saints tonight, so he is playing.
And
Says Randy and Chris.
And how about the injury to Butker happening fairly early and Dawkins having to come in
and what a game too.
What a game. Exactly. And like, that was great. Cause like we had the discussion prior to the game was like, okay, well, Dawkins isn't really looking like he's going to be starting. They were reporting that he was, Brown was taking the reps at left tackle. And then obviously a wrench gets thrown into that plan because Butker gets hurt and they have to bring Dawkins in and slide Brown back over to the right side and slide Williams in. Look, that left guard position really is the one, right, that kind of seems to be that revolving door, because now it seems like at least when guys are healthy, you've got Dawkins settled at left tackle, you've got Brown at right tackle, you're sliding Williams in to play right guard, you've got Morse at center. It's really that left guard position that has continuously been that revolving door. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I would be shocked if Bates isn't the starting guard against Atlanta. I mean, I don't know. They don't really have another option at this point.
Unless Cody Ford comes off the COVID list. Or
in which
John
case,
Feliciano.
So Feliciano looks unlikely. And even if he's back, he's not going to be really ready to play. Cody Ford, maybe, but like they're probably going to keep him as the backup sort of quote swing guard in case something happens to one of the others. So we'll see. I think it's going to be Bates, though, to start against Atlanta.
Yeah, and I mean, just my last note that I had here as I fast forward into my notes for the offensive line, according to Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic, reading through his review, his morning after review or his post-game review, the Bills gave Josh Allen 3.1 seconds to throw in this game, which was the longest time they'd given him to throw all season. So talk about a unit that might be getting hot at the right time and finding the right unit, left to right, Dawkins, Bates, Morse, Williams, Brown, getting hot at the right time, finding the right unit. If that unit can put up a performance like they did against the New England Patriots, against the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets, and carry that confidence into the postseason, not to mention, I think Dawson Knox had a really underrated game in pass and run blocking. I know he got called for that one hold, but on that same call, Charles Davis made sure to go off his way to compliment the blocking that he had been doing all game up to that point. If you can get that blocking from this offensive line, this team can do damage in the postseason. There are two things that keep the Bills from being a Super Bowl contender right now. They're both on the trenches. Number one is giving Josh Allen enough time. Number two is stopping the run, and we're going to get to that later on in the show. Those are the two things that are going to keep the Buffalo Bills from winning the Super Bowl, from accomplishing the goal that we want to accomplish. And if the offensive line can play like they did against the New England Patriots, who are a very good defense, despite the fact that Matthew Judon might have been playing with COVID, that's an offensive line, and that's a performance from an offensive line that can get you over the hump into the past that AFC Championship game into the Super Bowl. So you always want to make sure that you call out those positives. But for all the positives the offensive line was, they were the reason why there was such a negative cloud surrounding the Buffalo Bills heading into the game. My jabroni of the week in the pregame show was Thad Brown when he tweeted, with the Bills offense in its current state, this is before Deion Dawkins was activated off the COVID list, getting Josh Allen out of Foxborough in one piece might be a more reasonable goal than winning a football game. Before the game, Jerry Sullivan tweeted, the Bills have the better quarterback, yes, but it's hard to understand the optimism. Pats lead the NFL in fewest points allowed and have allowed one second-half touchdown in their last 6 games. The Bills are without their top 2 receivers. I don't see them putting up 20 points. Well, I'm glad the Buffalo Bills didn't listen to the media and this negative aura and this negativity and this toxicity that they have been putting around this football team for the past week, talking about divisions in the locker room and things of that nature. This is an absolute week-to-week league. It was just 2 weeks ago that the Pats and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were front runners for the Super Bowl. It was just 14 days ago that, and then 14 days later, it's Mac Jones sucks. Is he a bust? Like that talks a little crazy, now the Pats are a fringe playoff team. The snap of a finger, the things change in this league from week to week. I don't understand all the negativity and the toxicity that went into this game. The national media succubus that was surrounding the team this week. ESPN Countdown had Jerry Sullivan on the show, and they tried to make that post-game press conference after the New England game into something that it wasn't. You had Mike Garafolo on NFL Network saying all of Western New York was calling the Buffalo Bills embarrassing. No, it was literally one fucking guy.
Yep.
And questioning, their character and all that stuff. You had Rob Ninkovich saying that Sean McDermott was outcoached by, Bill Belichick in the last game, and that he was in Sean McDermott's head, and that, the Bills had no chance in beating the New England Patriots yesterday. You had all this national media succubus. You had this local media succubus, all this negativity and this toxicity surrounding this football team for a week. And what did you see? You saw Josh Allen have his most alpha game I think I've ever seen from Josh Allen. The way he was strutting around the football field, the way he was flexing, the things that he said post-game. You saw Stefon Diggs telling everyone in Boston to suck his dick. Like you saw, Jordan Poyer running off that football field looking for Jerry Sullivan. That was a team united. That was a team focused, and that was a team on fire against the New England Patriots. And from the second the ball was kicked off until the second the clock ticked 0, they owned that game. They owned it. And every aspect of that game, they outcoached and they outplayed the New England Patriots.
Everything from your alphas worked out for the Bills in this game. McDermott, probably one of his best coach games that he's ever had. Diggs and Allen, obviously. And I talked about before the game how we needed a little bit more emotion on the offensive side of the ball. And Diggs was the guy I thought that was going to bring that. And he certainly did. And you could tell how much this game meant to, especially, we're going to get to McKenzie, but especially to Diggs and Allen, right? As the alphas on the offense, because that emotion poured out, right? I mean, you saw it on the Diggs touchdown, him pointing to the fans, and you saw on multiple occasions. And especially on I think it was either the Singletary touchdown or the Knox touchdown, where Josh Allen with the emphatic arm pump, like it came out, right? The emotion came out, and that's the sign of a team that knew how important that game was, and it was a sign of a team that was playing basically as a united front, like you mentioned. And there was nothing that I saw at all from how you could read in between the lines, body language, whatever, that this team wasn't ready to play, and that they felt that, there was any kind of issue or like division, which is just BS, right? Now, there was other things probably that were motivating him as well, right? Like I'm sure Jordan Poyer getting snubbed from the Pro Bowl, which again was very well documented. Josh Allen getting snubbed from the Pro Bowl, right? All of this stuff, it's again, the Bills seem to play their best for some reason when they are doubted, there's any slight whatsoever towards them. That's when they seem to play their best, which, look, maybe it's a good thing that they're not going to be
Baker Mayfields.
Maybe it's a good thing that they're not going to be like the 1 or the 2 seed, right? Maybe it's a good thing that they're kind of like, flying under the radar, so to speak, as like the 3rd or 4th division winner. And, they're not going to be up there at the top of the seeding. I know they can still get up pretty high, but like maybe that's a good thing for this team going into the playoffs, that they play their best when people are doubting them, when they feel slighted, when they feel disrespected. And so, hey, look, they're going to use that to their advantage, and McDermott's going to keep them focused. So I'm with you, man. I think everything kind of worked from the alphas, the head coach, the quarterback, and the alpha receiver.
I mean, to me, I mentioned this on a couple of weeks ago after the Tampa Bay game, where I'd like to see Josh Allen just show a little bit of Aaron Rodgers flair. Like I don't give a fuck, this is my team. That sort of alpha sort of mentality, where I felt like Josh Allen in the past was maybe just a little passive. I'm not saying like in the locker room he's passive or on the sideline he's passive, but every once in a while, like I wanted to see him just like grab a guy by the collar and just lead this team. And sure enough, like he did that in this football game. And at the end of the football game, Matthew Fairburn at The Athletic said, as Josh Allen made his way to the visiting locker room in Foxborough, he yelled, "I don't know who the fuck they thought I was," as he was running past the New England Patriots. So clearly he was seeing something from that New England defense where he felt like they weren't respecting him, or their game plan didn't respect him. The game plan was to just keep him in the pocket, is what it looked like, and hope you get your pressure with the front four and try to disguise your coverages in the back end, confuse him into throwing a pick. And it just didn't happen. And the offensive line held up, and it gave the receivers chances to separate. And the offense sort of flowed from there. But some Josh Allen statistics. It's going to lead us to our player of the game here. Josh Allen, most games in history with 300 passing yards and 50 plus rushing yards in NFL history. Steve Young is number 1 with 8. Josh Allen is now number 2 with 5. The dude's 25 years old, and he's now second in the National Football League in career games with 300 plus passing yards and 50 plus rushing yards. Only player in NFL history with 100 passing touchdowns and 20 rushing touchdowns through their first 4 seasons. Players to have 34 plus passing touchdowns and 4,000 plus passing yards in back-to-back seasons. Josh Allen is now one of 4 other guys. Tom Brady's done it twice. Drew Brees has done it twice. Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers. What were your thoughts on Josh Allen's performance in this game?
This is an MVP caliber performance. This is an all-pro type performance. This is a performance of someone, and just based on like what you said, Matthew Fairburn said, a guy that emotion came out of him for feeling probably disrespected in multiple ways, from the Pats defensive scheme, from not making the Pro Bowl, from the, just the noise around the team, maybe not getting the love that it should have gotten, and the doubt around the team. So when all things kind of point that way, he is the $258 million man of this team, and he rose to the occasion. And that's not a guarantee for anyone really in the NFL. Like, there are very few shortlist guys who you can say, this guy's going to rise to the occasion in the most important games, in the most important moments. In today's NFL, it's Tom Brady, it's Aaron Rodgers, it's Patrick Mahomes, and it's Josh Allen, man. I mean, those are the guys that are rising to the occasion in the most important games, in the most important moments. And all of those guys have slip-ups. All of those guys have bad games. But when it really matters, they've stepped up for their teams, and they've done everything they can in their power to bring their teams wins and bring their teams to the promised land as far as championships and deep runs into the playoffs. So the performance from Josh Allen was really unbelievable. The multiple, across the body, back, to the backside of the field throws, the fourth down run, the touchdown pass to Diggs. I mean, you can go on and on. The shuffle pass on third down to Diggs. Like, it was just one of his best performances in his career, honestly. And I think when we look back, this might be one of those games where people might forget like how good he really was, because it was like, a regular season game, and the Bills only got to 9-6 with this win.
1
but
o'clock.
Like, it was a 1 o'clock game, but this was like, this could be when we look back, if the Bills do make a deep run in the playoffs, and who knows what they do, we could be looking back at this game and saying like, this was the turning point for the Bills to making that deep playoff run. And it was because of Josh Allen.
And Matthew Montgomery comes in and says the stats of this game are wild, especially given Josh Allen's performance last year. He came into Foxborough last year and he completely pantsed the New England Patriots. And he came back out here again 1 year later against Bill Belichick in a better defense, and he completely pantsed him a second time. Like, how did they not see this coming, and how did they not respect him in a ways in which he was stymied today? It's crazy to think about the numbers he put up, knowing the defensive minded coach on the other sideline, knowing the personnel he had available to him, and knowing to what Josh Allen did to him the season previous. Matthew Montgomery is correct there, when it's just absolutely wild the day that Josh Allen was able to have with all of the things on the other sidelines that were going up against him. Pave Dave coming in with a great comment. There was like a reporter on the New England Patriots beat. It wasn't even a reporter on the New England Patriots beat. I think it was a magazine editor or something who got into the press room for some reason, and she was doing a story on New Year's resolution. And in the middle of his post-game press conference, did you see this? Asked Bill Belichick, so what are your New Year's resolutions for this year? What's one New Year's resolution you have for this year? And Bill Belichick was like, what the fuck? Like, and he was just like, yeah, I'm not going to answer that question right now, but I'm willing to answer this question right now. What is my New Year's resolution? My New Year's resolution this year is to find people in the national media who deserve to be praised because they legitimately put the work in, and there aren't people reading them information through an earpiece and they're just reciting it. And one of those people is Mina Kimes. I absolutely love following Mina Kimes on Twitter and listening to her takes. She's one of the few people who actually like does some research before she spits words out of her mouth on national television. She had the tweet of the night, in my opinion, when she talked about Josh Allen's game, because I think it perfectly embodies Josh Allen's game yesterday against New England Patriots. she said it was a balance. He for the first time, or not maybe for the first time, but maybe for the first time her watching live, he found a balance between methodically working the football down the field and doing those and those bonkers crazy playmaking plays.
Mm-hmm.
So he found that balance between working the ball down the field and being methodical, maybe being the Tom Brady death by 1,000 paper cuts, and doing all those batshit crazy things that he does on a football field so well. So he sort of blended a little bit of Brady with a little bit of Mahomes and put his own Josh Allen spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably one of the reasons why he had such an absolutely incredible game. He was taking those dump offs to Devin Singletary early in the game. Why New England was giving those to him, I have no idea. But he was. And you saw that alpha come out on the last drive, that bonkers playmaking Josh Allen on the last drive. On the final drive, Dan Orlovsky on ESPN pointed out this morning on that 4th and 1. That ball probably should have went to Devin Singletary. Josh Allen kept it for himself. He absolutely juked out like 2 defenders, 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then took the ball for a first down. Then you saw the shuffle pass to Diggs, where Diggs went and got a ton of yards after the catch on that shovel pass, picked up another first down, brought us down to the goal line. And then you saw his touchdown pass to Dawson Knox, where, he saw that giving the ball to the running back wasn't going to work. He saw that scrambling wasn't going to work. So he got Kyle Duggar to come up, and then he just flicked the ball to Dawson Knox for the touchdown. So you saw the methodical Josh Allen for a ton of that game, taking the right decisions, dumping it off when he had to. And then you saw Josh Allen do Josh Allen things, the Josh Allen experience, take over when he needed to on that final drive of the game. There were so many people. Me and you were jokingly sending screenshots back and forth of all the people like, typical New England, they're going to get 8 points here. It's going to go to overtime and we're going to lose. And we had that 3rd and 10 and he hit McKenzie on that for that first down. And it started clicking from there. It started clicking. He left on the field. He scored a touchdown. The game was never in doubt. 100% on Josh Allen. So just an absolute alpha game from him. And to me, the hierarchy of quarterbacks in the National Football League, whatever order you want to put them in, it's probably Brady and Rodgers first, right? First and second. And then it's Mahomes and Allen. That's the top 4. What other quarterback could you put into a top 4?
You can't. You cannot put anyone else on that list right now. You can't.
Dak statistically is not where Josh Allen is. Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, I think, would be more of a projection than an actual what they've done.
And Kyler Murray's last several games, he's kind of fallen off.
Kyler Murray couldn't play on a sprained ankle. Why? Yeah. Because if he can't run, he's no threat. He's not a threat. If he's not a threat to run, he's not a quarterback. He literally on an injury that 99.9% of quarterbacks play through, he missed a month. So to me, there's no one.
Lamar, when he's in, is probably 5th, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, and you can make an argument that, Lamar's 4 and Allen's 5, whatever. Statistically and Pro Bowl wise, no, you can't make that argument. But, in general, you can make that argument. But it's just absolutely crazy. This dude is just an absolute leader of men. Cover One posted that Ike Bucker video today, where when Ike Bucker told Allen, he's like, man, I heard a pop, I'm done. And like Josh put his hand up to his face. Like you saw the pain and the empathy that Josh had for his brother on the field there. And just the way the players are just absolutely drawn for him, drawn to him on the sidelines and the way he leads that group. I mean, my goodness, Aaron Quinn on the Cover One postgame show yesterday said Josh Allen's the best quarterback to ever play in Buffalo, including Jim Kelly. I think he's going to get there. I'm not ready to go that crazy yet. But Aaron went there last night. But I mean,
Josh Allen's skill set and ceiling and ability to take this team to the promised land, that stuff, that I think is higher than Kelly, but like he still has to deliver on it, right? So you can see why Aaron made that comment, because Josh Allen is an absolute freak, and like this is like a once in a franchise type of quarterback, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, this is like getting your version of, Aaron Rodgers for the Bills, right? Like, and the Packers have had 30 years. It
just took 25 years.
Yeah,
between our Favre, aka Jim Kelly, and our Rodgers, aka Josh Allen.
Exactly.
It's just absolutely crazy. I mean, Thursday night football started off with what? What was the Thursday night game this week? It was San Francisco, Tennessee. So having to watch Ryan Tannehill and having to watch Jimmy Garoppolo, and then having to watch on Christmas Day, Baker Mayfield. I know he's playing with that shoulder, but throw those 4 interceptions all over the football field, and and having to watch, hey, Carson Wentz actually had a pretty good game, but then watching Tyler Haneke and now watching like Ian Book right now, it's like, man, I'm really happy that we don't have to worry about any of that shit for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Like that feels really good. Yeah, it feels incredibly awesome to know that. So let's get into our next segment here. Things that we like from this football game that don't involve Josh Allen. What's one thing you liked from this football game outside of Josh Allen?
Well, we talked about the O-line already, so I'll kind of pass on talking about that. Obviously, Isaiah McKenzie is going to be a big storyline coming out of this game, and I get it, right? It's not a big sample size. He hasn't really had the opportunity to be a prominent featured, we'll call it receiving threat in this offense to date, right?
Mhm.
He's always been kind of a gadget guy, jet sweep guy. He's played in spot duty here and there. But this was really his first opportunity to play a prominent receiving role, right? With Beasley and Davis out, and he delivered. So the fact of the matter is, yes, it's a small sample size, but he's still got to go out there and deliver, right? He's still got to go out there and make those catches. And everyone's been showing that replay of that incredible Josh Allen throw where he was fading back to his left and threw it to the right. That was like the only play McKenzie didn't make. Like he didn't catch that ball. That was incomplete. But every other ball that was thrown his way, the dude went up, the dude went down. He went anywhere the ball was. He was making plays. And I know it was a good matchup for him against Bentley, but he still had to go out there and make the plays. He still had to go out there and catch the ball. And he still had to go out there in clutch situations, in high pressure situations, and make those catches on the third down, like you said, and other third downs as well. So Isaiah McKenzie is definitely a storyline coming out of this game, and is an obvious choice as a positive, right?
Yeah.
Coming out of the game.
We got Reed Levine, our boy, coming in saying, boys, I got to tell you, he's a Massachusetts guy, right? I kind of forgot he was a Massachusetts guy. Got to tell you, a lot of quiet Pats fans at this game on the walk out of the stadium. My favorite shot of that game was when they showed sort of like that loopity thing that they have at exiting Foxborough.
Yeah,
and
everyone's
watching
just walking
all of those Pats fans leaving. And I'll never forget. I was at the Monday Night Football game. I think you might have been there too. The McKelvin fumble. Were you there?
No.
Were you there? Okay, I can't remember. I was talking to someone else. But the Otis McKelvin fumble on Monday Night Football. I was in the stadium in Foxborough. That was back when I used to go to one road game a year. And we were walking down that same fucking spiral tunnel. And just the absolute pieces of shit that every single one of their fans were. Just the completely obnoxious, fucking awful things that they were screaming at us as we were walking out of that stadium. It's like, dude, we just watched a good game. Your team won. Your team's probably going to go off and win 5 more Super Bowls before Tom Brady fucking retires. Like, you got to be heckling us the way you are as we exit the stadium. Just absolute bullshit. So to see all of them walking out, probably a couple people crying, that felt pretty good. So thank you, Reed, for reminding me of that. And we also got John DeFazio coming in and saying, it's really never been Josh, except for maybe a game this year, that cost us 6 losses. It's been the lack of personnel moves, things like Bates and McKenzie, for example. And I agree to an extent. Like I agree to an extent where, I tweeted on Sunday, I tweeted yesterday, it's criminal that it took that long to find a role for Isaiah McKenzie in this offense. And, the guys over at Cover One did a really good job explaining how Isaiah McKenzie was able to be open so much. They talked about how they took advantage of the Miles Bryant matchup in the slot. They talked about how they took advantage of bunch formations and how that was something New England struggled with against the Colts, and they really didn't have an answer for against the Bills either. They didn't really, switch anything up. But at the end of the day, there's just a word that I thought I invented, but I didn't invent. It's a real word. There's just a different dynamicism to the slot when Isaiah McKenzie is out there. Allen clearly has trust in him. And the guy, the difference in yards after catch between Cole Beasley and Isaiah McKenzie is night and day. The number of extra 4 or 5 yards after the catch that Isaiah McKenzie was able to get that maybe a guy like Cole Beasley was unable to get. It's baffling to me. Number one, it was baffling to me that he had no offers this offseason, or at least no significant offers that would have made him turn down Buffalo's 1 year, like $1 million deal that they gave him. I was completely baffled that Isaiah McKenzie didn't get a bigger deal from someone else this offseason. He's a UFA again, and he's a guy where I want him on this team next year. as one of our top 4 receivers because I really do think he's a legitimate weapon on this offense. Is he a number 2? No. Is he like Cole Beasley in his prime? No. But like, I do think that he's the heir apparent in the slot for this football team. I think that he can go along with Gabriel Davis, another guy with inside outside flex. You bring in this offseason and Stefon Diggs, and you have yourself a pretty good top 4 receiving core. And it just blows my mind that they weren't able to get the ball and package the ball and come up with a game plan to get this guy more touches this year. It's absolutely incredible to me. And to me, it's criminal. And that is on Brian Daboll. That is on Sean McDermott. We talk about their archaic thinking. Ryan Bates can't play guard because he's our backup center. Isaiah McKenzie can't play offense because he's our kick and punt returner. It's archaic thinking and it needs to go away. You saw Sean McDermott go for it on like every 4th down this game. He was like Brandon fucking Staley out there. Where is that in terms of putting players on the football field? They're the best players available to you to score points. It makes no sense.
Well, I think that's probably the main reason what you said about the kick and punt return. Stevenson now showing pretty well on kick and punt returns, showing that he can be trusted. He's actually looked pretty good doing it. I don't know, right? I'm not inside the locker room. I don't know the thought process necessarily going into these decisions, but at least part of me logically wants to explain it to myself in the context of they didn't want to lose McKenzie on kick and punt returns while Stevenson was on the IR. And so for that reason, and the fact that they still had Beasley and Sanders and Davis and Diggs, they were saying, look, Isaiah, to me, right, to us, you're more valuable right now doing kick and punt returns because we got no one else behind you. We have all these other guys, playing receiver. You are more valuable to us doing this. It was this. I had a similar thing happen to me, right? I was on the baseball team in high school, and I could hit pretty well, but I was fast, right? I could steal bases. And they have a rule in high school baseball that if your catcher or your pitcher gets on base when they're hitting, you get a free runner. Like you get a free substitute. So I never really got to play because I was more valuable to the team getting on base, like being a base runner and stealing bases than I was actually being in the lineup. So I kind of can justify it that way. But now looking forward with Stevenson there and showing pretty well, like now there's not really an excuse, right? Like now you have to figure out how you're going to use him more. The question then becomes is like, okay, if Beasley's back and Sanders is back and Davis is back and Diggs is there, like there's only so many touches to go around. How many touches are you going to give him, and how do you incorporate him in the offense, and who do you take away from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just still so baffled. Because like me, like I've been talking since the preseason. Like he had such a great preseason. And he looked so much more crisp as a route runner, and he looked like he had developed more as a receiver. It looked like he had taken what, Cole Beasley and Stefon Diggs and guys like Emmanuel Sanders. It looks like he took what they were teaching him.
I will say Sanders did kind of piss me off in this game.
And we're gonna get to Emmanuel Sanders. Don't you worry. We're gonna get to Emmanuel Sanders because he's been doing a lot of pissing me off lately. But he has been doing so much growing, and like they weren't willing to like. He's respected the process. Chris Janke said it in the comment section. He's the longest tenured receiver in the receiver room. He's been here since Josh's rookie year in 2018. He's done nothing but respect the process. He's done nothing but drink the process juice. And he's worked and improved his craft. And they go out and they bring in Emmanuel Sanders. And when Emmanuel Sanders is clearly freaking shot, they're still won't put him in the game. When Cole Beasley's struggling with a rib injury, they won't sit Cole Beasley down and give Isaiah McKenzie more of a role in the offense. And even if you're not sitting Cole Beasley down, they're still not even just subbing Isaiah McKenzie in certain packages. And they're not creating packages for this guy who has respected the process. They talk so much process, yet they offer him a dirt cheap deal in the offseason where he literally probably had better offers to go to other teams. I'm not saying they were significant offers, but they were better offers. He said he would come back here and play for Candy. That they're talking about that in the comment section as well. They're not creating packages for him, and they're just not respecting the work that he put in. That's frustrating to see from a coach who talks about respecting the process. He's not respecting the process when it comes to Isaiah McKenzie. So that is troubling to see. We got a super chat here from John DeFazio. says right on Judge. But with that being said, I feel bad for the team that had to face has to face in the playoffs Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Stefon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Motor, and a revised O-line. Oh yeah, freaking Josh, massive. Was that Chino shoulder? Allen, chin on. I don't know where you're going with there, John, but I think you're just trying to say Josh Big Dick Allen going out there into the playoffs. But yeah, it's again, like I look at this football team and it's Stefon Diggs on one boundary, it's Gabriel Davis on another boundary, and then you have Emmanuel Sanders who can come in and sub on the boundary and can sub inside, and you have Cole Beasley and Isaiah McKenzie who can work the inside. But it doesn't just need to be Cole Beasley on the inside. It doesn't just need to be Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis rotating on the outside. You can work all of these dudes in. There you go. Master chip on the shoulder. There we go. I was like, I wasn't quite sure where you're going with that. But you can work more people in and you can create more packages to people. And, people were joking. One of my other positives to this game was Brian Daboll. People were joking, like Brian Daboll's reading Twitter. He's finally starting to kind of take some of the suggestions that people are offering him on social media. It was a perfect balance in this game, and he was using a lot of pre-snap motion. They talk about the New England Patriots. Now, the New England Patriots like to use pre-snap motion. I believe Kendall said they use it fourth most in the National Football League. And the reason why they do that is to give Mac Jones an idea before the play, because Mac Jones is a rookie quarterback. And as much as people in New England want to think he's this next budding superstar, he needs a lot of help pre-snap to figure out what the defense is doing. Just because your quarterback is Josh Allen doesn't mean he doesn't need that same help pre-snap or can't use that same
Every
help
good quarterback does that.
Every good quarterback does it. Where was that motion?
Peyton Manning did it probably better than anybody.
Yeah.
Tom Brady. I mean,
and you've got Joe Marino, who said the Bills team that is playing the Patriots yesterday was not the same Bills team that played them 21 days previous, because Brian Daboll is starting to incorporate more of his personnel. You even saw before injuries, Jake Kumaro was out on the field more. You saw Isaiah McKenzie on the field more, Matt Breida, etc. Yeah, he's working these dudes in. Perfect balance, use pre-snap motion, blending packages, going in and out of 11, 12, and 21 personnel. You even saw some touchdowns called back this week for Brian Daboll. The Jake Kumaro, Josh Allen misconnection, that was an easy touchdown. And then the same drive, talk about a drive that made you want to rip your hair out. Dawson Knox gets a touchdown call back on the Darrell Williams play. Yeah. So those, to me, Brian Daboll also gets a pat on the back, and he's something I really enjoyed this game as well.
Brian Daboll definitely gets a pat on the back. Obviously, the O-line we talked about. Diggs, obviously playing not 100%, right? I mean, it's clear that Diggs wasn't 100%. Mm-hmm. They talked about how he maybe tweaked his knee or tweaked something. I don't know specifically what body part it was, but clearly he was grimacing. They made a note of it on the CBS broadcast, and then you could tell that he was kind of shuffling in and out. He was kind of shuffling in and out here and there. I mean, he did play 82% of the snaps, but he played the same number of snaps as Sanders. He played fewer snaps than McKenzie. He played fewer snaps than Dawson. So, Diggs was clearly not 100%, but guess what? Didn't care. He went out there, did his thing, played like an alpha, and that toughness, I forgot who made this comment. It might have been Joe Marino, and so I apologize if I'm not crediting the right person, but talk about the Josh Allen toughness. I thought this was a great comment. Stefon Diggs' toughness, it might have been Aaron Quinn, actually, that said this. Stefon Diggs' toughness, man, is something we probably should talk about more, because that dude, you can tell he played most of that game yesterday, not at 100%. And obviously we know he played in the AFC Championship game last year with the oblique issue, but never on the injury report, shows up every week, emotional leader in that receiving room. I mean, he is the guy you wanted when you traded for him. So we need, he needs his due as well, as much as this was Isaiah McKenzie's quote game. I mean, Diggs did his thing as well.
In my notes here, again, an alpha game. He set the tone. He set the tone for this offense just as much as Josh Allen set the tone for this offense. New England was literally every other drive was changing something to try to get Stefon Diggs contained, and they couldn't contain Stefon Diggs. So JC Jackson, you ain't getting an island named after you anytime soon, son. You know, it's just like 7 catches, 85 yards, a touchdown, just like he was just the absolute tone setter in this locker room. I think he's the exact opposite of Emmanuel Sanders, who we're going to get to in the negative portion. But other than Stefon Diggs, we had a comment here from where is it? From Cody Finney. I want to pull up here. And to me, Sean McDermott was a positive and a negative in this game. And I'm going to explain why in a second. He says the biggest thing is McDermott grew an effing pair and stopped with the conservative field goals and punts. I love the aggressive play calling. Kudos to the Bills. Didn't punt a single time. I think the first time that's ever happened to Bill Belichick in his 270 plus career games of coaching football. 3 of 4 on fourth down, 0 punts, sort of a little bit of riverboat Ron to him today in this game. All positives. And I want to give Sean McDermott credit where credit is due. But here's the negative. Here's the negative I have. Why does he seem to pick and choose when he wants to be Mr. Aggressive and when he curls up into a little ball and acts really conservative? Like, we can't have this inconsistency from Sean McDermott. He needs to figure out who he wants to be. Hopefully it's Mr. Aggressive, and he needs to be that dude. He shouldn't need the extra motivation of the national media making fun of him for 3 weeks for saying, don't give Bill Belichick more credit. He shouldn't need the national media making fun of him for 3 weeks saying Bill Belichick outcoached him for him to come out and to coach the way he did. Like, I honestly think that if the narrative after the Patriots Monday Night Football game wasn't Bill Belichick outcoached Sean McDermott, I don't know if you see that aggression from Sean McDermott today. I don't know if you see it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think, I try to look at this as like a macro exercise in the sense of like, how does Sean McDermott stack up against, the other elite coaches in the NFL? And like, what are the other elite coaches in the NFL? Like, what are their flaws, right? Like we talk about maybe like Pete Carroll has his flaws around like questionable play calling, right? In certain situations, we talk about maybe Mike Tomlin. Sometimes you wonder about like, does his, more of a cheerleading type style hurt him in certain situations where there needs to be more like X's and O's game management type things. John Harbaugh going for 2 the last 2 games with the Ravens and coming up short is going to be questioned. So like, I think of this in a macro sense of like, okay, well, are these flaws we can live with McDermott? Are these permanent flaws, right? Are these things that he will improve on by looking in the mirror? We've questioned sometimes his game management, his clock management, in-game situations is where he's kind of struggled as a coach. It really hasn't been on, practice and preparation so much. It's been more on like in-game type stuff. So is this something that we're just going to have to live with McDermott? Or can he actually evolve from this and kind of learn from it? Because we have to remember, like, he's still only in his fourth year as a head coach, but he's been coaching in the league for a long time. So yes, he went for the win in Tennessee. So,
but that's what I'm saying.
It's like when he decides.
I'm not saying he's never aggressive. I'm not saying he's always uber aggressive. I'm saying like you'll get one Sean McDermott one day and you'll get one Sean McDermott the next day. It's not like a mix of the two. It's not a blend of the two. Like, it's unpredictable what Sean McDermott you're going to get that day. Like, another day of the week, you like another like 3 weeks later, you might have seen in a different situation just him kick the field goal there, or you would have seen him punt or things of that nature. So it's very unpredictable what Sean McDermott you're going to get.
There might be some truth to this from Randy. McDermott is conservative when he doesn't trust the players in the situation, didn't trust Josh to throw in the win, then is forced to and realized he could have thrown. But that's still on McDermott, right? Like, for him to not trust the players, that's a flaw of his, right? Because like clearly he could have thrown in the win. So for him to not know that, or for him to not trust that Josh could do it, like, that's still a flaw, right? I mean, like, and I know Randy would agree with that, but like, it's kind of weird, right? I mean, like you talk about trusting your guys, and you talk about, let me tell you, he does need to take a timeout.
One of those was on Josh Allen, though. Like, one of them was Josh Allen calling the timeout, but that is one thing. Just to wrap up the offense here, I thought Dawson Knox only 2 for 11 and a touchdown. He had that touchdown called back. I really do think he helped out a lot blocking. So those are some pluses to Dawson Knox's game. And instead of transitioning over to what we liked from the defense, how about we just stay on the offense and things we didn't like on the offense? What's one or two things maybe timeouts we just mentioned,
Mhm.
use of timeouts. I'll trade the touchdown or the timeout for the touchdown any day of the week. But some of the other ones were a little meh. Fortunately, we didn't need them. But what are maybe some other issues you might have had with the offense? What were some things you didn't like?
I mean, Emmanuel Sanders was one of the negatives. A couple drops, it seemed. Obviously, the fourth down play near the goal line, that was a catchable ball. Was it a perfect throw? Debatable. But um, for a guy that's kind of had that swagger in his press
Mhm.
conferences, and a guy who really has been around the league and has really made a reputation as being a guy that is a pro and like has made his mark where he's been. It was concerning, and
Mhm.
so Emmanuel Sanders to me didn't make an impact in this game. Was a low light in this game, especially in a big spot, right? You have Emmanuel Sanders and you have Isaiah McKenzie that need to step up in situations where Gabriel Davis and Cole Beasley are out. And it was Isaiah McKenzie who stepped up. It
Mhm.
wasn't the veteran. It wasn't Emmanuel Sanders, the longtime vet. It
Yeah.
was the young guy in McKenzie. So this is an
Mhm.
interesting comment from Chris. OPI low energy. The low energy one's an interesting comment
Ah.
because that one, like you were gonna say, and
Yeah.
comparing him to Diggs. So go ahead.
So you had the Sanders drop in the end zone, cost a 7 there. You have the offensive pass interference. To me, like it looks like a guy who shot, a guy who struggles to get open on the boundary more than he used to, a guy who is costing us points because we didn't get any points on that drive. Luckily, we got the ball back on the intercept. No, that was on the interception, but then we held them, got the ball back, scored again. Low energy. Like Thad Brown shared that video of Josh Allen on the sideline after the game, and everyone was pumped up, everyone was riled up, and Emmanuel Sanders was just like in the corner pouting, right? And like I joked in the middle of the game, and a lot of people were like, "Man, that's funny, but it's kind of fucked up." In the middle of the game, I'm like, Emmanuel Sanders post game is not going to tell you that he dropped a ball. He's just going to tell you that he learned ways not to catch it because that's been his vibe. That's just been his vibe all year. Oh, you live and you learn, bro. Like, this is a championship playoff caliber team. Like, every mistake we make in the regular season is just going to help us get, when we get to the postseason, man, just to even keel, that's been him all year. I don't like that attitude from Emmanuel Sanders, and people have been up my ass about it all season, but I don't like that attitude from Emmanuel Sanders. I don't. And, he was saying all those things like, yeah, we're learning from these mistakes and, it'll help us in the postseason. Well, up until this game where we needed that catch to help us get to the fucking postseason in the first place, we weren't a shoe-in to get to the postseason, Emmanuel. You were counting your chickens before the eggs were hatched. And now when the games come down to it to get us into the postseason, so you can learn from all those mistakes that you didn't seem to give a shit about in the early parts of the regular season, you went and dropped a touchdown. You went and got an OPI. You went and slouched because you had a bad day, even though your team had a great day. That was you, Emmanuel Sanders. That was you.
Yep.
I don't know what to say.
Yep.
I don't want this dude
Yep.
on this team next year. It's for damn sure.
Well, probably won't be. Obviously, a couple other little things. Moss tripping over a sheet of paper at the goal line was concerning. It looked like a walk-in to me.
That whole sequence was concerning. That was my other negative. That goal line trip. After Moss had that really nice run, you went with 0 runs on your next 3 plays. Like you're telling, like I understand our offensive line isn't great, but you didn't think with either Josh Allen or Zach Moss you could get a yard. Like all 3 of those play calls were just goofy. They were weird.
Is it weird to you?
The rest of the game was great. The rest of the game was great, though.
I mean, Josh Allen's rushing yardage is up, or rushing TDs are down this year. Is it a little odd to you that we're not doing more?
Yeah, 100%.
Rollouts around the goal line, bootleg, like things to get Josh Allen on the move to give him the option to run or pass. Like that seems a little odd to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like, like I said, we're like 6th in DVOA in the red zone this year, but we kind of look at the Bills in isolation, so we question a lot of what's going on in the red zone, and we don't think that it's as efficient as it can be. But compared to the rest of the league, it is still relatively efficient. But yeah, I mean, you have Josh friggin' Allen in the red zone, like get him moving around, like that Dawson Knox touchdown, like you do that on like that should be a normal thing that you do in those situations. Like Josh Allen shouldn't be taking like 5-step drops on the goal line and things of that nature. Like that's what you should be looking for when you have Josh Allen in the game. But
Bills 7 red zone trips in this game, and they only had 9 drives. So they were only 4 of 7 scoring touchdowns, but they had 9 drives. One of those drives was the kneel down. So 8 drives, 7 of those drives got into the red zone. So they're getting there. Like we said, like they're one of the most frequent visitors to the red zone of any team in the NFL. 7 out of their 8 drives, they were in the red zone, not counting the kneel down drive, which was their 9th drive. So they're getting there. 4 out of 7 scoring touchdowns.
All right, let's transition over to the defense now. What were some of the positives? Obviously, they had 2 interceptions, 1 for 10 on 3rd downs. I thought Harrison Phillips had a really good game. Yeah. What are some of the positives that you take out of this defensive performance?
I thought the secondary, again, in the absence of Trey White, and again, I know Mac Jones is not necessarily the world beater that at quarterback, and he's not Patrick Mahomes, he's not these other guys, but as far as receiving threats, like shut down Hunter Henry, really did a good job on Kendrick. Like the secondary in the absence of Trey White, I know they haven't gone against really like a murderer's row of competition outside of Tampa Bay, but I've been really impressed with the play of the secondary still, even without Trey White. The secondary really hasn't been the issue, even with Trey White's injury. Now, this could blow up in our face when we start playing teams like the Chiefs or whoever in the playoffs, but I was really impressed with the way the secondary locked down the Pats receiving threats, especially the job they did on Hunter Henry, who I thought was
invisible.
Could be an issue. Yeah, could have been an issue. He was the guy said we had
a
respect
fantasy
going
team,
in,
so that was a little.
And he shit the bed, right? Like they shut him down. So kudos to the secondary, kudos to the pass D. That was definitely a positive.
And by chance comes in and says 1 sack. Their pass rush looked pretty good on the first drive, and then it kind of fizzled out from there. But my counter argument to this by chance is that, and again, it's not like I'm making excuses for the pass rush, because they're also responsible for the next thing I'm about to talk about. But when your run defense is that bad, it's tough for the defensive ends to pin their ear back when they're concentrating and focusing on setting the edge, right? Because your team is struggling in the run game. So again, that's not a cop out. I think we got decent players to get to the quarterback, but when you're struggling to stop the run as much as you are, setting the edge and containing becomes a lot more important than getting at the quarterback. And we still found a lot of success against Mac Jones, even without getting to him. So I think a lot of the focus in this game went to stopping the run as opposed to rushing the quarterback. So that's why you maybe saw a lack of some of those box score statistics. Again, that's still on the players, right? Because if they'd stop the run, they could pin their ears back a little bit more. Damian Harris, 18 carries, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. I said this on Twitter. I thought their run defense in this game was more embarrassing than their run defense on Monday Night Football. Like there was no excuse today. They knew exactly what was coming. They had no answer for the counters and the pitches and the things of that nature. And the weather wasn't forcing New England to run every single play. To me, this was more embarrassing than what happened to them on Monday Night Football. And the biggest issue was the counters and the over pursuits. Our defense just can't seem to handle it. The linebackers, the defensive ends, the defensive tackles, we seem to struggle with that counter run game and those and over pursuing on those counters and pitches.
It certainly looks that way. And like the secondary, as good as they are in pass D, there's some responsibility there for them. I didn't think Dane Jackson was very good in helping out on run D. There's one play where he just like literally ran past the running back going across the field. And maybe that was his assignment. I'm not the film expert like guys like Eric are and Anthony, but man, we talked about pregame, like you need to stop the chunky running plays, right? Like the big plays on the ground. I mean, Damian Harris busted out that 31-yard run right after the Bills went down and settled for that field goal, right? So it was like, you don't want to see that, and you don't want to see a guy averaging over 5 yards per carry against me, or against the Bills. So again, it was noted during the broadcast in the last 3, 4, or 5 games, the Bills' run D has given up over 100 yards out of like 4 of their last 5 games, now 5 of their last 6. So that run D has really been an issue. But you're right, there were still some bright spots. Harrison Phillips, I thought, played a good game, and Julio Rios comes in here with the super chat. Who needs opportunities on our defense? Justice McKenzie in the offense.
To me, I would say no one. I mean, up until this point, I would have said maybe Efe Obada, but then Efe,
he didn't have such a great game.
He didn't have such a great game either as well. No, but here's how the Buffalo Bills decided to counter the New England Patriots running. They used Efi Obata on the edge as opposed to a 3 technique. So they put him in at defensive tackle, or at defensive end, and a bigger body at defensive end. They used AJ Klein. They went more base, even though it's tough to take Teron Johnson off the football field. And they substituted in Saran Neal for Dane Jackson on the boundary at corner. In a number of situations in this game, he was the one who tipped the ball, which led to the Micah Hyde interception. So to me, Julio, I don't have an answer to that question. I don't know if there's any one player. Maybe Ed Oliver playing 75% of the snaps. Maybe like that's something I would like to see. But that's not so much as a guy not getting opportunity as a guy I like to just see on the field more, because I don't really like the rotational aspect of a lot of this that they utilize along this defensive end. But that was the Buffalo Bills answer for that run game, was inserting Saran Neal, AJ Klein, F.A. Obata. And
what about Basham here? We got a couple people saying Basham should get more playing time. Do we think that
it's all relative? I mean, it's all relative. I don't think it's going to help you out any. It depends on what you're looking for. I mean, if you're looking for a guy to get to the quarterback and get sacked, I don't know if Boogie's going to get that for you. The Bills
and Rundy, I guess they're saying, would he be an asset?
I mean, I honestly don't think that the ends are the problem when it comes to over pursuing. I think most of it's your linebackers. I think the linebackers over pursue. There was a couple plays where Teron Johnson completely overran the play. The safeties, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, as much credit as we want to give them, they overrun plays all the time. So it's going to be really interesting. And Randy makes a really interesting comment here. And this is actually something that I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks. Randy says all 4 of our young defensive ends will be better as wide nines. Bring in Jim Schwartz. I was curious a couple of weeks ago, and I asked myself, I'm like, what's Jim Schwartz up to? And I Googled Jim Schwartz. He is a defensive consultant right now for the Tennessee Titans. And so, he's practically a guy who, if he wants to leave there and go get another job, can go get another job. If Leslie Frazier gets a head coaching opportunity this offseason, I wouldn't mind. I understand that they're not completely in sync. They're both 43 guys, but they're not completely in sync. I wouldn't mind if Sean McDermott brought in a guy like Jim Schwartz, who has maybe some different thoughts about how to do things.
Our defense was awesome when he was here.
And to maybe, oomph up the pass rush a little bit. So if Jim Schwartz, I don't know what contractually that looks like being a consultant in Tennessee, what that looks like in terms of what he can do and what jobs he can take. But if Leslie Frazier leaves this offseason, I would love to bring Jim Schwartz back here. So you can blend what Sean McDermott does, because Sean McDermott's a defensive mind, and you can blend in a little bit of what Jim Schwartz does, and you can try to add some pass rush to this defense, because I think that's sorely lacking. So funny you mentioned that, Randy. I really do think that a guy like Jim Schwartz, who seems to be available, could be I don't know if he is at this point. Eric Washington is next in line to be defense coordinator for Leslie Frazier, who's on. I don't know if Eric Washington's on this football team next year. This defensive line, man, talk about underperforming. I mean, AJ Epinesa, we're getting to the point now where do we ask him to put weight back on?
Man,
I don't know. Do we ask AJ Epinesa to put weight back on at this point? Okay, AJ, this isn't working out. We asked you to lose weight. Can you get back up to 275? Without the power, he seems to be missing a little something. He's popped in the Miami game and he's been invisible ever since. Some people will say, well, he's behind Jerry Hughes. He's not getting the run. He's not getting the opportunity. How do you expect him to stick out if then he's also been inactive some games? Like, are we getting to the point where we're asking AJ to put weight back on? You're seeing Boogie Basham inactive a ton this year. You're seeing Greg Rousseau, I think, is playing very well. But we're to the point where I don't know if Eric Washington has a job next year, because I don't think he's earned another year as Buffalo Bills defensive line coach with the way some of these defensive linemen progress. But then again, Sean McDermott does seem like a guy who's very set in his ways, and it wouldn't surprise me if he does, just move Eric Washington back up. He was the DC in Carolina for a little bit there under Ron Rivera. If he just does elevate him back, it wouldn't surprise me. I just think it would be bullshit. Like, I don't think it would be earned.
Would not inspire a lot of excitement out of me if that was the case.
And that's so Sean McDermott, right? Oh, Tony Romo, like, oh, or Jay Feely talking about like, oh, Tony, when he was talking with Tony Romo, he took out his notebook and he was taking notes from Tony Romo. And Cover One did an article a couple of years ago where Sean McDermott bounces ideas off of all of these college coaches, guys like Manny Diaz and Dave Aranda, and they have this sort of like back and forth where they talk to each other about schemes and what they can do to improve themselves, et cetera, et cetera. If this offseason the opportunity presents itself and Leslie Frazier leaves, I don't want to see Sean McDermott just bring in another yes man. Like, I don't want to. This is your opportunity to go out, and you're a defensive coordinator. If things go fucking wrong, you have Eric Washington coaching defensive line that you can always just fire the guy and promote him. Or, you're a defensive minded coach. You can just take over. Go out and challenge yourself and bring in another dude who brings in a different perspective, who can maybe bring something different to this offense to elevate it and take it even higher than it is right now. Like, challenge yourself. So to me, if Leslie Frazier does leave and Eric Washington is just simply elevated defensive coordinator, that would be completely uninspiring. You're right.
Uninspiring. That's a good word for it as well. Yeah. Uninspiring, unexciting. Look, Leslie Frazier, he's earned kind of the right to do what he wants to do with this defense, given the success he's had since he's been here. But if he leaves, and he deserves to get a chance, Eric Washington, to me, man, I would be highly disappointed with that.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it as is, the run defense, the defensive line, the over pursuing, all those things. Again, it looks like the Buffalo Bills have found their solution. Who knows if they utilize this again, but going a little bit to base with Klein, using Obata on the edge and inserting Saran Neal into the lineup. January football is right around the corner, right? Like, playoff football is right around the corner. Weather's going to be an issue. Your opponent is going to try to insert itself at the line of scrimmage and dominate you along the line of scrimmage. We could easily see the Patriots again in the first round of the playoffs. We could easily see the Colts in the first round of the playoffs.
Yep.
The run defense right now, if that offensive line we saw against the Patriots continues to be the offensive line we see the rest of the way, offense is no longer going to be the issue. Pass defense, clearly not the issue. It's going to be that run defense. Is your run defense going to cost you a Super Bowl? And if it does, feel like it was avoidable. I really do feel like it was avoidable. But one thing I did notice, so the Neal substituting in for Jackson I think was interesting, right? To me, Levi Wallace is a UFA heading into this offseason. And who knows, they still might bring Levi Wallace back, etc. But we talk about the draft. And, me and Randy was in the comment section right now. We talk about the draft a ton, and we got to draft a guard. We got to draft a wide receiver. We got to draft, a defensive tackle, this. I'll tell you what, if there is a saucy cornerback who likes to garden out of the University of Cincinnati sitting there on the board with the Buffalo Bills pick at 6'2", 200 pounds, really good in run support. Could this be a sign that maybe the Buffalo Bills are realizing that maybe they need some more physical, aggressive corners to do a little bit more man-to-man stuff? They've been doing more man this year than zone in the past. I wouldn't put it past the Buffalo Bills if there was an athletic corner, like a Sauce Gardner on the board in the 20s when the Bills are picking, maybe 32 when the Bills are picking. I saw a mock where he was in the second round the other day, and I thought that was crazy, but still, it goes to show you that he could be on the board. Don't be shocked if the Buffalo Bills take a corner in the first round of this year's draft, because I think subbing in Saran shows the Bills are at least a little bit cognizant of the issue of a lack of physicality on the boundary at corner. So listen, I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm not going to say they're going to do it, but could this be the first real sign that maybe they're noticing a problem? I think it might be. It might be,
but they're in a situation where I don't know that they will see what happens come, this off season, but not to get too far ahead, but will they be in a situation where they maybe have the luxury of taking a guy like that? Let's say they do bring Levi Wallace back as a UFA, and he's back in the mix. Trey White is back. They've got Dane Jackson still. What other holes are there going to be right on this team? So I love that thought process, and we thought that was a real possibility for them in this past draft, and they didn't do it. So I'm kind of wary of putting too much stock into going corner early now after, my heart was kind of broken last year. I still like Gregory Rousseau, don't get me wrong, but my heart was kind of broken last draft. So we'll see.
All right. Before we head out here, I do have another Jabroni of the week.
Jabroni You are 3 seconds away. And The Rock means 3 seconds away from The Rock to lay the smackdown on your candy ass.
Yeah, I can't stop you though. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
My jabroni of the week this week is me. I am the jabroni of the week. I don't know if you had a chance to see this on Twitter, but Mike Reese, who works the Patriot beat for the New England Patriots, he tweeted the video of Stefon Diggs telling fans to shut the fuck up. And he tweeted with this comment. He said, Stefon Diggs holiday greetings to Patriot fans, courtesy of the CBS broadcast. Imagine if the NFL expanded its taunting rule to include spectators. So I quote tweeted his tweet and I just said nerd, referring to Mike Reese. It got a nice, it got decent 68 likes, but I'm the jabroni of the week because Mike Reese absolutely bodied me in the comment section. And here is Mike Reese's response. Hey, Air Raid Hour Buffalo. That's no way to talk about Stefon Diggs. He's in the heat of the moment and just made a big play in a competitive situation. Cut him some slack there. Just take it for what it was. And that got 546 likes. So,
and
that's
a good sport. Mike Reese, good sport, and bodied you.
I like Mike Reese. I don't know what I was thinking when I tweeted that. I was absolutely bodied. My dogs even were disappointed in me for doing that. You can hear them in the background here. But I don't know. Do you have any jabroni in the weeks or parting thoughts before we head out here?
Yeah, my jabroni of the weeks are the Pats fans complaining about officiating. Okay, like please, like you shut the fuck up. All of you Pats fans complaining about officiating, please shut the fuck up. Jerry Hughes' play on Mac Jones. Should Jerry Hughes have touched Mac Jones? No. Was he trying to hit him? No. He was trying to actually hold him up. He grabbed his jersey to try to hold him up. Please, Pats fans, for you to be complaining about officiating after all the calls that have gone your way for the past 25 years with Tom Brady at the helm, please just shut up. You sound like idiots. You sound like entitled babies. All of you Pats fans complaining about officiating are the jabronis of the week and of the year and of whatever else you want to say.
My name is Riley. I live just outside of Buffalo, New York, and I'm an adult baby. That video is saved for Pats fans this week. And it's crazy. Like the WEEI guys, right? They get the phone call today from that typical, that shit's planted, right? They legitimately probably have their producer put on a fake Boston accent and call those things in because for some reason, people in Boston are weird, man. They find the weirdest shit entertaining. If you've ever listened to Boston sports radio or a Boston sports podcast, they find the weirdest fucking
By the way,
shit
the Bills still had more penalties than the Patriots
in
the game. So
they find the weirdest shit entertaining. It's kind of funny. But someone else, there was some, I don't know if anyone saw the Pat McAfee show this morning, but Pat McAfee did a Mythbusters deep dive into the Stefon Diggs hot mic situation.
Yanni and Laurel.
Yeah. So a lot of people and a lot of people were like, he said, shut the fuck up. And a lot of other people were like, no, he said, suck my fucking dick. So there was a debate going on about what it is, what he said. And what Pat McAfee found out was that it was likely that Stefon Diggs was saying, shut the fuck up. At the same time, a Patriots fan was telling him to suck his fucking dick. And the way that the hot mic and the thing was pointed, they sort of blended together onto the TV.
Interesting.
So he had an inside source who was in that section, who was in that section of the stands. And that person said, well, the fan was saying, suck my fucking dick. And Stefon Diggs was telling him to shut the fuck up. So I guess on the hot mic, they sort of blended together. This is now the X-ray. This is now the X-rated hour, by the way, for people are like, oh, everyone, and no one has any problem, by the way, saying shut the fuck up. Like Pat McAfee today was like, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. But all of a sudden, when the word dick is involved, it's S my F and D. They're too afraid to say the other thing. But we got Walter coming in here with a super chat saying them trying to say that incomplete pass was a fumble was hilarious. How many fumbles you ever seen of a spiral?
That was comical. I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it was
I
certainly interesting.
I will say that this has been one of the that was one of the better officiated games the Bills have been in recent memory.
Yeah,
Like, and
I
that's
was
saying something
I
because
was
they've been in some bad
shocked.
ones.
I
It
was
was
shocked.
not a badly officiated game, I didn't think.
I was shocked when they called back that Jerry. I
Oh, yeah.
agree with it. I agree with it. I was dumbfounded. And then when David Andrews got that taunting, I was just laughing
Oh,
my
that was
ass
so
off.
funny.
Because like I saw a couple tweets this week where it's like the Bills are unraveling. Well, they didn't look like the team unraveling at the end of the first half.
How about
There.
this one? The Judon leg
Oh
sweep.
yeah, humble Patriot way, man. The Patriot way. It's that shit was, and here's the thing too, right? So that Judon trip was not called by the officials, and that's fine.
No.
But that thing's gone viral on the internet. He should get fined for that.
Yeah.
Like the NFL should go out of their way to make sure they fine him and point out the fact that that was a cheap shot. There was
It was.
no accident about that. There was nothing accidental about that. I mean, the Browns were taking shots at Aaron Rodgers' toe in that Browns Packers game. I think the Fox at one point the Fox banner said Aaron Rodgers like 38 dropbacks, 4 hurries, twice hitting the toe. Like that was literally the graphic. Was how many times they hit him in the toe because they were clearly trying to hit his toe because he's playing with that broken
What
toe.
I find funny too is like this is now the second time I think this year. There was the time Chris Collinsworth made the comment about like them twisting Josh Allen's ankle and being like, "Oh, there's just a little extra there. Nothing, no problem." And then Charles Davis did the same thing with the trip. He's like, "Oh, just a little extra there. No problem." Like I'm like,
Yeah,
really?
like it's a
Like
joke.
really?
People were complaining about Charles Davis. I don't know what it is. I think he has a very soothing voice, so I don't get caught up in the words that are
I
actually
think it's the Madden knowing he's the Madden announcer triggers
yeah.
me.
So like everyone gets triggered, and going back and listening, like it wasn't great, but like something about his voice is so soothing. I
He does
like
have
it.
a good voice, but
He's got
he's Madden, so
it's
I
not
just can't.
good. It's not good when the words come out of it, I guess. But Matthew Montgomery said this man saying Josh Allen flopped. Did he even fall to the ground on that trip? I don't even think he fell to the ground. Absolutely brutal. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this victory edition of the Air Raid Hour. Any initial thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons before we head out of here?
I mean, the Falcons they can't run the ball. So if there was a good matchup for the Bills and like an area to kind of avoid their weakness, which recently has been the run D, it's a good matchup for the Bills because I like Mike Davis. My brother-in-law is a big South Carolina guy. I've always liked Mike Davis. I think he's a good player, but the Falcons really can't run the ball. So if you're the Bills, like you just gotta take care of business against Atlanta, and we'll talk about it more on pregame. But man,
yeah, and we'll bring this up pregame. But my biggest concerns at this point: Cordell Patterson in the big play. Kyle Pitts could be a problem. And then on the defensive side of the ball, their defensive coordinator is Dean Pease, who I think is a very smart, heady defensive coordinator. And they're still technically fighting for a playoff spot, who I think could put a game plan together where, it could give Josh Allen some headaches. Now, the question you have is, do the Falcons have the personnel on defense to execute Dean Pease's vision? And that's a completely different question altogether. I remember a situation earlier this year where this video went viral of Dean Pease in a post-game press conference where the reporter is like, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? And he's like, and he literally sat there for 5 minutes and literally just clowned the reporter and explained to him why this guy was out and this personnel package and this guy wasn't effective. Like, he just like, this is why. And he essentially explained like, yes, that seems like common sense, but the reason why I'm not doing that is because my players aren't good enough to do that, is essentially what he said. Yeah. And he just took this reporter to school. So while I think that Dean Pease is a great defensive mind, I don't know if he's going to have the personnel. And the Bills offense just score a ton of points depending on the weather. And just because Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson break off a couple of big plays here or there, I can't picture that Atlanta Falcons team sustaining very many drives against this defense. So Buffalo Bills got to win this football game 100%. Absolute embarrassment if they do not.
Yeah. I mean, Falcons second to last in the NFL in rushing yards per game, only ahead of Houston.
You're going to get an ultra aggressive Atlanta Falcons team.
Yeah.
And nothing to lose.
This is a great point by Daniel because they are desperate teams are scary. We say this all the time. Like a team that's desperate is not a team that you want to play against, even if you're significantly better. Like okay, like that's the situation. I still think if you're the Bills, you take playing against Atlanta than playing against someone like Cincinnati right now. If that was your choice, like right, like you're gonna play Atlanta, and yeah, and the Patriots were 5 or 6 on fourth downs. So the Bills should be used to that situation. Like that game they just played against the Pats, although not as good of a team, like you're probably going to see that level of aggression from the Falcons as far as fourth downs and things like that. So
they'll be going for it on fourth down like New England did, says Matthew Montgomery. That's the one negative we didn't talk about. I have it in my notes here. Where is it? The Buffalo Bills. They were 1 of 11 on third down defense, 5 of 6 on fourth down.
Yep.
Ooh, you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago where it's like the defense isn't bad, but some of these third down and fourth down conversions they give up are just absolutely demoralizing. And they cannot have that. They cannot have that.
It is, but I mean, how many of those were like they didn't convert third down because it ended up being like a fourth and inches or a 4th and 1? There were a lot of those. Like all the fourth downs that the Pats converted, I think outside of maybe one, were like 2 yards or less. So I mean, I kind of get it.
Well, the Miami Dolphins just went up 17-3 on the New Orleans Saints. Jalen Waddle scored a touchdown, and then his celebration is literally he waddles, which I guess
God.
that's brand recognition there, I guess. But I kind of want. I don't know. Is it wrong of me to want the Dolphins to win out to see if they could usurp the Patriots?
I would love it.
Like if the Bills and the Dolphins made the playoffs and the Patriots had to stay home, I don't know. I should be rooting for the NFC team here. Obviously, with Ian Book as their quarterback, down 17-3 midway through the third quarter, it's just about over. But Randy says just in time for Ian Book to take over. Yeah, it's time for the boat. It's time for the boat. Put Blake Bortles in. I don't care if he hasn't practiced with the team yet. Blake Bortles, that motherfucker's going to put a lipper in. And he's going to Kyle Orton it. He will go out there and he will sling that football around. I think they should put in the boat. I've seen enough of Ian Book, even though I've watched 4 minutes of this game. Maybe I've seen enough of Ian Book. All I've seen was the pick six. And I also know they have 3 points. So, but anyway, if Miami can somehow sneak into the playoffs, I feel a lot better playing them for a third time than I do the Patriots.
I would too.
So it would just be funny. And our boy Kevin, he needs this. He needs it. Our boy Kevin needs it. So
I like Kev. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the real end of the show now. And until next time, ladies and gents, go Bills.
Go Bills.